if I was on the phone with you and your business was running a 20-to-1 LTV to CAC, I would be telling you that you are insane for not increasing your advertising spend.
You're not just climbing trees, you're climbing destiny. Yeah!
What is going on? And welcome back to another episode of the Branching Out Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Rademacher. And on this podcast, we talk about things to help grow your tree service business. I'm a little sad today. I got stood up. We were supposed to have a guest on to interview that is a tree service business owner. I love what they're doing online, invited them to the pod, but they didn't actually show up. So I was in the podcast studio. I was ready to go. So I figured let's go ahead and come out with another episode. And what I landed on is I want to talk about business math for tree service companies, because this is one of the things that is nuanced and often comes up on calls. Is we look for the lowest cost per lead oftentimes. That, one of the questions that I always get is, how many leads are you going to give me? Because they're trying to judge cost per lead to see if our agency is good at what we do. And what I would encourage you to think about instead are some of the things that we're going to talk about today, which is your customer acquisition cost and your lifetime value. Because I'd rather chase one amazing quality lead that's $100 versus chasing 20 of them that, 19 of them are BS for $20 a piece. And so I'm going to give you the framework that we use to justify our own marketing expense internally when we're running ads. And this is the way that will ensure that your business stays cash flow positive and also make sure that you're actually getting good quality customers coming in the door. So the first thing I'm going to start out with is we do need to understand what our cost per lead is. And if this is a new concept for you, it's also called CPL. So we'll go ahead and write down CPL. And let's say that we spend, call it $2,000 on ads, right? That's a super low ad budget. We spent $2,000 on ads. And from that $2,000, we rocked it. We're going to pretend that it was Meta. And we got 100 leads. That would never happen on Facebook. That would never happen on Google. It might happen on Facebook with a really good ad creative. So that means that your CPL, your cost per lead, is going to be $20, right? I'm using easy numbers so that we can make the math make sense. Basically, when you, all things being equal, each lead costs us $20 on this channel. And most people are like, that's awesome. But we haven't talked about the quality yet. And so that's where we would want to understand our CAC. This is our customer acquisition cost. This is how much does it actually cost us to acquire a customer. Now, this is going to take into effect basically what our close rate is. So how good of a salesperson are you? Everybody thinks they're the best salesperson, by the way. And we're going to do 25%. So you close 1 out of every 4 leads that comes in. So you actually, especially if this was Meta and you were doing 25%, I would say that you're doing pretty good there. We're also going to go ahead and say total marketing and sales costs. Let's say that we spend $3,000 paying salespeople to close these leads, plus we've got $2,000 in the cost per lead. Our total marketing cost, easy math, we're going to say is $5,000. So now that means that we have $5,000 in total cost, and we close 25% of this 100 leads, which means that our is going to be 5,000 divided by that 25, right? 5,000 divided by 25 is going to be 200. So our customer acquisition cost is $200. That's not bad. That's what it cost me to buy a customer. Hey, sorry for jumping into the middle of your podcast, but if you are a tree service business owner and you want us to take a look at your market, your competitors, I encourage you to book a lead flow strategy session with myself and my team. We're going to take a look at everything about your business, your market, and give you a solution, a structured plan that you can implement to improve your market share and grow and going into the new year. If that's at all interesting, go ahead and go to arboristmarketingpros.com/schedule. There's links all over the internet, probably in the comment of this podcast description. And we'd be happy to chat with you and see you there. This is when business gets fun. When I have a number assigned to how much it costs me to acquire a customer, that means that my marketing is at least dialed in enough that I can scale it or fix the problems, right? If I have a leaky bucket. Now, if you're doing this math, and you're like, I don't know what my close rate is, you've got to figure that part out, or else you're never going to be able to understand what your total cost is, right? So now we've got to figure out something to compare this to, because it's nice to know that I can buy customers for $200. But if I don't have the ability to make a margin on that, like I can't make any profit, then there's really no point, right? So we want to make sure that we understand a couple of things here. Let me draw some lines just so we keep our thoughts sort of synced up here. All right. So next concept we want to talk about is lifetime value. And let's say that you are a restaurant, right? Lifetime value is going to be very high for a customer, because a customer is probably going to come back again and again and again and again. And you can increase your lifetime value by providing a good experience, by having good marketing, good reactivation campaigns, good food. Like, there's a ton of ways that you can increase LTV. In the tree care industry, there's also ways that you can increase LTV. Like you could do reactivation campaigns through text messages, sending out text messages, email notifications, direct mail to your customers that you've already done work for. That's going to drive up your lifetime value. A lot of business owners that I talk to are thinking very one-time transactionally. I spent $20 per lead and I got one job. I got $1,000 out of it. That was great. I made money, right? But if you think about from the overall perspective of what is a customer worth to you, if you were to get a new customer, on average, all things being equal, how much is that actually worth in dollars and cents, right? So let's say that our average job is $4,000. So we'll say we do a lot of big removals, crane jobs. So we're averaging out about 4K, right? We do 2 jobs per customer on average. So that means that our LTV is $8,000. Now, this is going to vary. I'm doing this with easy numbers just to make the math simple, but this is going to vary depending on your business, your niche, your area, all those things, how you price your jobs, right? Hopefully this number is enough to keep the lights on. And so now you can figure out what is your profit, because we don't just want to directly compare our customer acquisition cost to our lifetime value from the perspective of gross revenue. We want to look at it from gross profit, because if we're not making money, then we're not in business, right? So let's go ahead and pretend that our profit margins are 50%. That means that the lifetime value, we'll say, is 50%. That's our margin profit. So that means that our LTV equals 8,000 times 50% is actually $4,000. Okay. So this is money that actually exists. Now, the next thing that we need to figure out is, what is our customer acquisition cost to LTV? So basically, what I'm saying here is, what is this number, this lifetime value of 4,000, compared to the customer acquisition cost of $200, which is insane. I should have used better numbers for this. That is going to be like a 20 to 1, 20 to 1 LTV to CAC, right? We're just going to put this down here. That's a monster, right? Realistically, if I was on the phone with you and your business was running a 20 to 1 LTV to CAC, I would be telling you that you are insane for not increasing your advertising spend. If your LTV to CAC is this high, we want to pat ourselves on the back and say, yeah, we get customers really cheap and we have super high margins, but we also want to grow the business. Those two things don't go hand in hand. If this was true, I would say that we need to probably add a 0 to, right? Like if we're spending $2,000 on ads and we're getting, a $20 cost per lead, let's go ahead and 10x that, because as long, again, we're looking at profit, right? So that means for every dollar that you put in, you're getting 20 back on the back end. I'm happy if this is like 4 to 1, 5 to 1. If I'm putting $1 into my business and I get 4 to 5 back, I'm cool with that. If it's under that, then I have to fix something along this math problem, right? Probably most of the time it's going to be the close ratio or the cost per lead. Those are the two things that I have the most control over. Close ratio, well, and LTV, I guess, your average job size, right? And so I can fix my pricing by charging more. I can fix my LTV, how many jobs I get per customer, by improving my follow-up process and nurturing my database and the people that I've already done jobs for. I can increase it that way. I can also increase my closing ratio by leveraging AI with making sure that we're responding to every customer inquiry. I have somebody paid to answer the phone so that they're getting a true customer experience every time they call. They're not going to my voicemail. That's all going to increase my close rate. And I can reduce my cost per lead. Now, $20 cost per lead, there's not much, it doesn't get much better than that. But on other channels, if I looked at my average cost per lead and my average was somewhere in the $120 range, I could reallocate some of my budget depending on the marketing channel to bring down that cost per lead. That would also offset this LTV to CAC number down here. So at the end of the day, this is the magic number. I want it to be at least 5 to 1, right? But honestly, if it's over, like, call it 7 or 8 to 1, that means that I'm not investing enough into marketing, right? If I after profit margin, if I'm not doing if I'm doing more than 9 to 1, like if I saw 9 to 1 LTV to CAC, that means that I've still got meat on the bone and I could still dump some more money into marketing to buy more customers to grow the business and increase my revenue. This math problem is the number one reason that business owners stay stuck, is because they don't understand what it costs them to acquire a customer, and they don't understand what their average customer is worth. I want to do another example just so you can see with different numbers what this might look like, right? Let's say that $20 cost per lead is crazy. You're not actually going to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and do a more realistic example. We'll call it a slow season example, right? So during this time of the year, the ad costs go up. So let's go ahead and say the first thing we're going to figure out again is our CPL. So let's pretend that we spent $6K on ads, right? We'll say $6K ads. And we're going to say that of that, we got 60 leads. So that gives us a cost per lead of $100. That's more realistic for what we're seeing right now. All right. So the next thing we need to figure out is how many customers are we going to get from this 60 leads up here, right? So let's pretend that we actually have a 20% close rate because, we're approaching the holidays. People don't got money to spend on tree work, all of those things. So we're going to say that our close rate is 20%. Okay. We had 60 leads. I'll save you the math. That is basically 12 customers that we got here. We'll say 60 leads. That turns into 12 customers. Okay. Now, this is where most businesses break, right? Because if we spent 6K on ads, that's going to be our total marketing cost, right? Now, if we divide that by those 12 customers that we got, that's going to be a $500 customer acquisition cost. Oh, yeah, this is juicy. This is more like it. So we're going to do a $500 CAC, customer acquisition cost. And that's your magic number right there. Now, if you're looking for a 4 to 1 LTV to CAC, then that means that I would need each customer to be worth at least $2,000 in profit, right? So let's go ahead and run these numbers. Let's pretend that your average job is actually $2,000. So we'll say average is 2K. And we'll say that the average customer hires you 1.5 times. That means that your LTV gross is going to be $3,000. Okay. Let's also pretend that we still have 50% profit. So we're going to say 50% profit. That's going to be $1,500 in LTV. That's the money that actually exists. Here's the reality check, is that your 1,500 divided by your 500 to acquire that customer is a 3 to 1 LTV to CAC. This is survivable, right? Like, you can have a business that grows like this, but it's tight, right? This is tight because now we're super reliant on conversion rates. If it feels very painful when we don't get a customer, we're not really very far into the black. I want this to be at least 4 to 1. So what can we do here? If we had these numbers, we have these numbers here. What can we do to improve? Well, Very simply, if you improved your closing ratio, that would widen the gap and get you closer to a 4-to-1 LTV to CAC. You bump that 20% up to 25%. So how do you do that? Well, if everything's going to your voicemail right now and you're following back up with people, just having somebody answering the phones can help fill some of that stopgap, and it might actually get you closer to 30% closing. Let's also go ahead and say that we could go ahead and improve the LTV, right? If we could get that 3K gross up to 4K gross, that automatically fixes it. Automatically, we have more money coming in from extra cash flow into the business, which we could dump more into marketing and invest back in to reduce this LTV to CAC even further. Let's also say that we could increase our profit margins. Maybe we're renting some equipment that if we purchase, we might be able to reduce our overall expenses. There's a ton of ways that we can leverage this once we have the numbers and we understand the math. If we don't have it dialed in this well or this good, then it makes it very hard. It feels like marketing is sort of this magical mystery thing. But these are the core numbers that if you're working with an agency, they should understand this language. These are the core numbers that you need to be able to speak to and understand if my marketing is working. Am I actually making money on what I'm spending? So if you have any questions, feel free to go to arboristmarketingpros.com/schedule. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one and look at these numbers for your business. Otherwise, appreciate you joining the pod. Oh, also, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, I'll drop a link here. You can just go to arboristmarketingpros.com, click on the podcast button and apply. We'd love to have you on here. Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks.